Hey everyone, Brian Fonvier here, back at it again with another set of D&D stories. Today, I want you guys and gals out there to grab some tissues because once again, we're going to be talking about what's the most heartbreaking backstory you've ever heard or created for a character. Part 2. I don't know if this fits, but here we go. His name was Luthias, a high elf evoker, and this is his story. I don't know much of my parents. When I was young, too young to remember them, they gave me to an orphanage and never came back. I grew up bullied and picked on for being different. Most of the other kids were human and had never seen an elf before. The kids would steal my food, call me names, and beat me until I was broken and bloody, and then leave me lying in the dirt, attempting the best I could to yell for help. As a result, I learned quickly to stay in my room. I began my love for reading at that point, reading all the books in the orphanage and occasionally stealing some from travelers that passed through the town. One day, I was attempting to steal a book from a traveler and was caught. He grabbed my hand as I attempted to take it and stared at me, taking me in as if he was studying me, looking into my soul. After he was done taking me in, he just said, "You have potential. I can teach you." He invited me to come with him, and without missing a beat, I followed him. His name was Talisman, and I would soon learn he was a wizard, and the leader of a group of wizards called the Black Court. Soon after rescuing me from the orphanage, he began teaching me in his craft, grooming me to one day take his place. I studied with him for 7 years, gaining more and more power each year. I loved it. I learned about the history of the court, about their goals. They were assassins hired by those who could afford it to wreak havoc on towns, families, and individuals. They brought me with them on some of their missions, began showing me the ropes. It was amazing. The control I had, the power I had over the people we were sent after. It felt indescribably great. After grooming me for quite some time, they sent me out on my first solo mission. I was to kill a woman who witnessed one of our assassinations and was going to come forward and tell the authorities. I did as I was asked, eager to be on my own. I tracked the woman down and broke into her room in a small inn outside of the capital. As I broke the door open, she jumped out of bed to grab her sword. I quickly cast Hold Person, immobilizing her as panic shot through her eyes, looking as if she wanted to scream, but too scared to even make a noise. I withdrew my wand and began my incantation of Power Word Kill. At that moment, as I stared at her as she cried, mustering the strength to beg me for mercy, I thought of myself being in the same position when I was a child, begging for the kids to stop to no avail. And I grew something that I thought the Black Court had beaten out of me long ago. A conscience. But I feared what the court would do to me if I didn't complete my task, and I cast the spell and killed her. I spent the next few minutes crying over her body. The realization of what I had done washing over me. I apologized to her, and I took the necklace that she had on her neck as a reminder of the atrocity I committed, and left. I never went back to the Black Court after that. Found my way into many bars, drank away a good 20 years of my life, and stopped the practice of magic in its entirety. I constantly had nightmares of the woman yelling at me to finish what she had started. One day I was traveling to a small town. I can't remember the name of it. I heard her voice begin to yell at me. I had never had this happen before while I was awake, and it took me aback. I dismissed it as a hangover symptom and muttered, "This isn't real." As if on cue, the voice yelled at me again and told me it was real. It turned out that her soul had been trapped in my wand since that night. Some sort of ancient magic had bound her there, a magic I nor she understood. It turns out the nightmares I was having were actually her yelling at me while I lay passed out from the booze. And at that point I understood two things. The first, that I had to find a way to release her soul for good, so she could be at peace. And the second, that I would not stop until I had brought destruction and death to every last Black Court member. His name was Arvinger, a pun on the word harbinger. He was a gunslinger who once woke up in a field outside a small woodland town named Hills Folly. All he knew was his name, and at his hip were two six-shooters, one of blackish-purple metal, the other of silver. He eventually found to live in the village, a common deputy, a sign of authority, and keeping of the peace. He'd tend to the markets and make sure everyone was abiding by the laws, and he'd always be of good spirits. But he'd never draw his guns. One day out in the woods, he was attacked by a band of goblins and finally had to draw his gun. As soon as he drew them, time seemed to slow down and his eyes flashed a scarlet red. He let loose a maelstrom of bullets, some glowing with holy light and others shrouded in darkness, before he passed out. When he came to, there was a dragonborn before him, and he was in the town square with everyone dead. All had been massacred in the quaint little town, and he set out to find the culprit, not knowing he himself was the one who massacred the town of Hills Folly. Gunslinger level 10, alignment lawful neutral. I thought my 12-year-old blood hunter Elkos, Eli, had a pretty brutal backstory. While Eli's dad was away from their isolated cabin, a werewolf attacked Eli and his mom. The mom was killed in front of the 10-year-old Eli. Trying to save his mom, Eli attacked the werewolf and drove it off. Eli severely wounded the werewolf, but was bitten in the process. The father, after losing his wife, tries to save his son. He tells the local townspeople his wife was killed in a bear attack. He locks Eli in his room every night while he turns, having to reinforce the door as Eli gets stronger and stronger in his Lycan form. Meanwhile, a blood hunter has found and slayed the original werewolf who killed Eli's mom and infected Eli. However, he also sees the wound that Elkos gave him. He starts investigating and eventually hears about the death of a woman at the hands of a random bear attack. He suspects that it's a lie to cover up what really happened, and thinks that it's Eli's dad who is turning. He finds the cabin and, believing he'd finally caught Eli's father in the lie, kills him with a silver sword. He leaves the distraught Eli to say goodbye to his dying father, but then sees Eli's room and realizes his mistake. Eli, now almost completely lost to the wolf, attacks the blood hunter and ultimately kills him. However, blood hunters' magic exists in their blood, and when Eli feeds on the fallen hunter, he absorbs the hemocraft magic from the hunter and is given the ability to control his wolf form. Elkos gains the powers of a blood hunter order of the Lycan. When he awakens, he realizes what he has done and realizes the monster that he has become. He buries his father next to his mom and burns down the cabin before he runs away, hoping that he can avoid being hunted himself. TLDR, 10-year-old boy sees his mom die, gets infected with lycanthropy, watches his father die, eats a blood hunter, and becomes a blood hunter order of the Lycan. Most of my player characters tend to have some kind of traumatic past of some sort, so it's really hard to pick. Here are two of the most relevant ones though. Sadani, a tiefling rogue who was forced to flee her home with her brother after her mother was killed in a riot. She befriended a hermit in the woods who taught her how to use firearms, but then the drow came along. The drow dispatched the hermit, and Sadani volunteered to be captured if the drow would let her brother go. After Sadani was captured, the drow proceeded to mercilessly slit her brother's throat right in front of her. Hope, a tiefling paladin who has struggled with his evil side since he was a child. The worst part was evil was winning. It took him many years of suffering to break free from the tyranny of his evil side, years of constantly dealing with self-loathing, depression, and suicidal thoughts. Now that he has been freed from this path of pain and suffering via divine intervention, he's determined to save others who seem to be going along the same path he did by any means necessary. I created a half-orc barbarian named Rey-Rey, the bounty hunter. But he always insisted people to call him Rey. Rey's title was an official one given to him by the Bounty Hunters Guild after he completed an extremely hard bounty. But Rey, despite his large size and scary appearance, just wanted to be a nice guy. His mother and father were killed by his dad's orc tribe because the tribe believed that the interracial marriage was the worst possible thing. Cast out and left to die, Rey endured more ostracizing from almost all races because of his large tusks and hideous appearance. Rey one day decided he had enough and left to live in the forest. Rey lived in peace with nature and tried his best to make a comfortable life. Yet one day his entire home and forest burnt down in a forest fire, and he had to suffer, watching his animal and fae friends being burned alive. While trying to save his friends, he got burned and lost his right eye. Broken and depressed, Rey took all his frustration out on his bounties and earned a reputation for being a tough dude. But Rey, despite his fame and accomplishments, was still unhappy and left it all behind to find friends, people he could trust, and give all his love to. And that's Rey, a massive dude who laughs at any joke, will pay for anything no matter the price, and loves to give hugs. Hey everyone, Brian Von VA here. Is everybody doing alright after all those sad stories? There's a couple in there that were real tearjerkers for me, so I'd understand if you guys need a virtual hug right now. With that said, make sure to leave a like, to subscribe, and to ring that bell to get notified whenever we post a new video or when we go live. Also, check us out on r/MrRipper, where you can post a whole host of stories yourself for us to read here or maybe live on a stream one day. And if you're not too busy, come check us out on our secondary channel, Riptovia. We've got a lot of different things on there, usually just single slot stories, but there are a wide variety of them over there. You might really like it, so give us a try. Links are in the description below. Also, with a help action, come say hi to me, Brian Von VA, over on Twitch and YouTube. As always, I always try to end things on a happy note, and today, I just want to say, it's okay to cry. And it's okay to have a really depressing backstory to your characters, because honestly, tragedy is the best way to grow. You're never going to grow if you don't have a problem in the world. So, it's okay to have problems in life. It's okay to have a problem in D&D. You know, just be yourselves and keep growing and learning from them. Tragedy often breaks or makes a person, and all of you out there listening in, I really have faith that all of you are going to be made from it, not break from it. We all care about you here at MrRipper. We all love you. Be safe out there, be happy, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.